Okay, so let me welcome everyone to the Smart Leader Live session for this week. Um, my name remains Olatunji Shobodu. I'm your, convener and anchor for the Smart Leader Live sessions. We took a break for a while, but about a week and a half, about 2 weeks ago, we got back, and so I want to thank you, those of you who have joined us this evening, and to welcome you and to basically remind us about the purpose of our gathering here. As the name suggests, it's a gathering for the purpose of leadership development. And so, our subject of discussion is leadership. And, the idea is so that we, as iron sharpens iron, so that we can discuss, we can help ourselves with understanding better the responsibility called leadership, and so that also we can help ourselves to be more effective as leaders. And so one of the things that, one of the reasons we created this is especially for your good selves, not even so much for me. For me is to learn from you, but it's for the purpose of allowing you to bring your issues, your concern, your questions on this subject of leadership to the platform, and then you can secure help or guidance as the case may be. I mean, we're all leaders at one level or the other, and that means that people are looking up to us, in one sense or the other. People are looking up to us, and therefore we have a great responsibility to live up to that expectation. And that would mean, if you're truly doing leadership, you would have issues because as long as you are dealing with people, there will be issues. And so, this platform provides the opportunity for you to share your issues, to get guidance, or to share your experiences so that we can learn from you, or basically even to discuss, issues that border on leadership that we find within our environment, either in government or in the private sector, or in any other community. They are all opportunities for us to learn. So I want to encourage you, since you have come, let's make the best use of the opportunity, the 1 hour that we typically spend together. I want to remind you as well that, leadership is crucial. One of the things that you find is that everyone needs the input of a leader to aspire to the best that they can be. If any of you, are subscribed to my YouTube channel, I spoke about something there recently. I said, you are not who God wants you to be yet. And the focus of that discussion was to challenge us to continue to improve. But more importantly, it was to show that you can't be the best that God wants you to be by being obsessed with self. Rather, it's by seeking for leaders and exposing yourself to the input of leadership, because the best of you requires the input of others. in order for you to come alive. All right. So whether you are learning, whether you are reading for a program, whatever it is, none of us has what it takes to become the best that God wants us to be, the best that we can be by ourselves. None of us. We need the help of others. Specifically, we need the input of leaders. We need the input of leaders. And so, we have to take leadership input seriously. All right. In this day and age where people just want to operate as independent, especially the youth, it's just impossible to play down on the input of leadership. Is not to understand what life is about, is not to understand what leadership stands for. And it's clear even from the Bible, because Ephesians 4:11-13 said he gave leaders. Well, in that scripture, he referred to them as apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors and teachers. They were leaders. And he referred to them as gifts to the church, to you and I. But why did he? Thankfully, that exposition told us why. It said, for the perfecting of the saints. All right? For the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the community, the body of Christ. All right? Until we all come to the unity of faith. That is a common understanding. And unto a perfect man. And unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Now, if you understand that reference, that means the saints cannot become anything. And let's not be religious about the saints. Anyone can become anything that is valuable to society without the input of leadership. Without the input of leadership. So I often hear people say, that they want to be the best version of themselves. I had a session that said, please don't be the best version of yourself. Don't ever be the best version of yourself. What does the best version of yourself? What does it mean? The problem with that disposition is that it makes you obsessed with self. It makes you look to self for development. And it kids you to think that you can become what you really have the potential for without subjecting yourself to leadership. All right? And it doesn't matter. It applies to parenting, it applies to corporate work, it applies to the development as a Christian. Anyhow, there are people who have gone ahead of you. There are people who have experienced more than you have experienced. And the way that, life is structured is that you benefit from the discoveries of those who have gone ahead of you. We often put it this way. We say that, there is no point reinventing the wheel. All right. What does that mean? If there's no point reinventing the wheel, that means that you recognize that others have gone ahead of you and you can take advantage of what they have done. All right. So don't reinvent the wheel, but you can improve on the quality of the wheel, on the functioning of the wheel. That's the scope that we have. But in order for you to improve, you must understand what people have done before. So if you think that it's not necessary to pay attention to them, who is fooling who, you can't improve. And therefore, you can't realize the fullness of your potential. So we can keep talking about, leadership is very crucial. Now, let's even come to our environment, and let's look at a few things. Earlier on, I was discussing, with my brother who is also on the platform, who decided to join us today. And we were talking about what has happened to the passport office. The minister came, is less than 2 months there. So in reality, it's just a couple of weeks, maybe slightly over a month. But what was the major issue, under his portfolio? Is immigration, is the issuing of passports. At the time he got there, he determined that there was a backlog, all right? People who have applied for passports who had not been given passports, over 200,000. And today, the numbers are out. I read the numbers about an hour or so ago, and I discovered they have issued over 194 or thereabout thousand, leaving an outstanding of 8,000. If we extrapolate from what they have achieved, then we can expect that the entire backlog, the remaining almost 9,000 will be cleared maybe within the week. So, a new person has come there. Somebody was there before that, left a legacy of horror, to get a passport of horror, clearly. You have to pay, you have to go through different channels, a whole, system of corruption. 200,000 backlog. Now somebody has come, he's barely done 6 weeks, and virtually the backlog of 200,000 is cleared. Before, it used to be the case, there are no booklets, the system is down, all manner of stuff. But if you had money, you could get the passport maybe even in 24 hours. I know somebody who came, stayed in, came for something, I think within the last 3 weeks. And he was in Nigeria for a couple of days for a burial. He came into Nigeria with his Nigerian passport expired. He was concerned how he could get a passport. He got a passport within 24 hours. Original, genuine passport, but it cost him 220,000. Okay, so what has changed? One key thing that changed is the fact that there's a new guy. There's a new sheriff in town. There's a new leader presiding. And if you listen to all the things that this guy has done in his first few weeks, you have something to look forward to. It's the same people that were working under the old leader that are under this new one. We are not aware that he has really even done any major shakeup in terms of moving people around. Maybe 1 or 2 appointments, I don't know. So that's leadership in a sense. And we can please talk about that and learn from that. All right. These are things happening around. These are things we can learn from. Then you also have another leadership issue, which is what transpired at the Federal Ministry of, is it Transport? Works, where the minister, locked out the staff who were latecomers, as at midday, people had not resumed at work. The same people who are about to go on strike, the same people who are clamoring for, new salaries, palliatives, and all of that. And there you are, we all saw, and I hope that everyone saw the video where, they started shouting, crying, the minister must go, and when they had the opportunity to speak, They were telling the minister, no, you can't do this to us. You have to respect us first. All right. You can't even succeed without us. You know, that's another leadership issue. All right. If you were in the minister's position, what would you do? Okay. These are interesting things to talk about, to learn from. Then you have the case of, you know, some characters, governors and deputy governors in at least 2 states. We've been hearing, you know, some interesting things. In Ondo State, you have the governor who was sick, you know, we are told a serious sickness, a cancer, we are told, you know, he just returned from treatment. While he was absent, while he was away, he had a deputy. Suddenly, now he's back, and the assembly is pursuing the impeachment of the deputy. Mm-hmm. In the case of Edo State, we have another instance where you have the governor and you have a deputy, and they had loggerheads, and we saw a deputy governor locked out of his office. So he arrived his office in the morning, the gates were shut, and he had to be calling what's going on. And he was told, well, a letter had been sent to his permanent secretary, or some permanent secretary, you know, that his office has been relocated. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, it's easy, you know, to point accusing fingers. It's easy to talk about leaders. I think many times the average person is expecting a wonderful leader. All right? And with little consideration for what it takes to lead. It's not the simplest of responsibilities. And I like to challenge many who are fond of complaining and pointing accusing fingers that, yes, that's the easiest thing to do. The more, you know, relevant thing is if you were there in their shoes, do you have what it takes to do differently? Will you really do differently? All right? It's very easy to find fault, and I'm not making any excuses for them. Rather, I am challenging us that we need to wake up and develop that capacity in ourselves to be able to do leadership right. Because so that we will be the example of the kind of leaders that we like to see. Because truth be told, the leaders you like to see are probably not available. And if they are not many. But they can be many. But only if you and I also begin to work on ourselves, begin to train ourselves to become leaders. And we start showing, you know, our leadership abilities from whatever level we are today. It is when you are faithful in little, where you are, that's when you'll be given an opportunity to handle greater responsibility. That's how the leaders that will change the fortunes of the nation, that's how they're going to emerge. That's how they're going to emerge. Okay. So I try to provide a framework for us to, you know, to discuss and make the best of the time, you know, that we have to spend together. So please feel free. If you have any issues, put them on the table. If you have any questions, leadership related, it could be personal, it could be observations, it could even be, or if you have any commentary to make, your views on, some of what we are seeing currently. Let's spend some time talking about it. It can be very interesting, but it's also a very serious matter. Leadership is a very serious matter, and everyone is suffering it. Whether you take interest in it or not, you are suffering it. Whether you have money or not, you are suffering it. Okay, because yes, you can have money, but you will still be subject to bad leadership. No matter what Dangote does, no matter what Adenuga does, they are also subject to bad leadership, and they are suffering the consequences. If the leadership was good, they probably would be, would be far ahead of where they are today. They probably would have been able to do greater things. The headache that, they have to encounter, will be less. So everyone is affected by the lack, of good leadership, and everyone gains from having good leadership in place. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the floor. So who's going to contribute so that you're not hearing my voice alone? Like I said, the session is not primarily for me, is for you, and to that extent is for all of us. So please go ahead. I'd like to welcome, pardon me, Shotomiwa. I'm not sure if that is Miss or Mrs. or Mr. and Atule Raphael. I hope I pronounced the Atule well, sir. You are welcome. So shoot. All right. So Shotomiwa is Mr. All right. So let's hear your contributions, please. Let's hear your voices. Like I said, it could be questions, or it could be, your comment. Let's. Who would like to start us off? Hello, for those who are joining us for the first time. Like I said, this is not on Smart Data Live. Is not a lecture session. It's meant to be an interactive session, where I basically make myself available and we talk about leadership. And it's more to support, your efforts, to help you in any way. And also particularly for those who are going through the Smart Leader program. I have a Smart Leader program. It's a 30-day program that takes you through the essentials, of leadership. So you want to rapidly boost your capacity to lead. Yes, the 30-day program will be well suited for you. And in the program, you have a video every day. You get a video by email every day. Is automated, and I speak in the video. I, speak to a particular matter every day. I deliver a specific message, and you get an assignment. And so you're expected to go through the program, take the assignment and submit, and then I respond to you by video, personally this time, commenting your assignment. So it's very flexible. I mean, it's you take it at your own time, at your own pace, but in 30 days you can be the same in terms of your capacity to provide leadership, and that includes having a better understanding of what leadership entails. Mr. Oni is one of those who have gone through that program. So I think he did that almost a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, or at least within that bracket. So if you haven't and you're interested, I will post the link before the session is over. You can check it out. So when you're on that program, you also have the opportunity. That's part of why I also run Smart Leader Live. As you listen, if you have any issues, you can bring them to Smart Leader Live, and then you can raise additional questions over and above whatever you must have put in your assignment. And I would have the opportunity to answer, and you would have the opportunity to benefit from others, some of whom I've also gone through the program. Of course, the program is free for anyone. Okay, so any of you, if this benefits you, you can share the link with others, colleagues, and your friends, and they can attend. So it's free. It's for anyone, as long as you have appreciation for leadership, and you want to develop your ability to lead, then you are welcome. Okay, so that's throwing additional light on why we gather here every Saturday evening for 1 hour. So am I getting any question? Are we getting any, contribution? Who wants to speak either to your own personal challenges or to the things that you're observing with the government, with leadership at different levels? Let's talk. The house. Oh yes, Mr. Oni, good. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I think I'm blessed with the examples that were made this evening. And the one I like to comment on,
Yes.
or just give a little more insight, is about the minister who is able to release almost 200,000 pending passports
Yes.
within a few weeks of coming on board.
Yes.
It's it tells me that leadership is more about the people, because probably the people that were there before, they were focused on themselves alone.
Yes.
It was about their own selfish interest, how much they can get, and who were just suffering. But this person came in.
Mm.
The vision is about the people, and the minister has been able to, add value in many ways. He has been able to bring about solution
Mm.
to problems that people have been facing for a very long time. So leadership is about the people, it's about looking for ways to make life easy for people, finding solutions to problems, helping people to achieve their aim, their vision, their purpose for life. So I mean, it's very interesting that such a thing is happening in Nigeria. We're just praying that it will spread across all parastatals, because the key problem Nigeria has is leadership. God blessed us with a lot of natural resources, a lot of valuable people who cannot perform because of the system the leaders have. I call them leaders in quotes.
Yes.
They have created that doesn't make things work, that doesn't make stars to shine. Then
Yes.
they go to other countries to begin to make waves. So trusting God that God will raise more leaders for us in this country, on this platform, and even on every one of us here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. There are a couple of, okay, do we have any other comments? I see, Mr. Atule's comment in the chat. All right, your comment is noted. I want to appreciate you for sharing this wisdom insight with us. Please, I want you to throw more light on leadership and management. Okay, so any other comment? Dari, any comment or any additions or, any issues you may want to raise?
Not really, sir.
Okay, so
Yes,
let's
sir.
let's talk about
But
the
well, it will be interesting to x-ray um, the issue of the governors and their deputy governors, because I incidentally, both of the governors that are involved are from the so-called private sector,
yes.
which are supposed to be the beacon of governance, the beacon of doing things right, processes and everything. And so far, so good in our own context in Nigeria. One thing is clear. Almost all the governors from the private sector, with the exception of maybe Ashwaju and his group, have been much more of a disappointment than the traditional politicians. And one needs to look at why. Because, these are people that have been in position of leadership. These are people that have presided over people. These are people that are well educated, gone to conferences. Some of them probably also over time have had to talk on the concept of leadership at various forums.
Yeah.
They have international exposure and everything. Okay, so now saddled, now you are on the seat.
Yes.
And suddenly, what we are seeing is lack of leadership, as it were. In terms of performance, they are nothing to write home about. In terms of, leading the people that they are supposed to lead, they don't inspire followers. They don't inspire followers. They don't bring really much to the table, and it will be interesting to know why that is. It will be interesting to know why that is. I mean, a child goes to school and then the people that didn't go to school are doing better than the person. Obaseki has been in the financial sector.
Yeah.
Financial sector is one sector where people are properly trained, where if you're looking for leadership, you ought to find proper leadership in the financial sector.
Yeah.
Akeredolu has also is a son, has also run his own chambers, has come a long way, and then this is what we are getting.
Yeah.
This is what we are getting from both of them. And one can even add the one in Ogun State, too, who is supposed to be a private sector person, who is supposed to, all these three are private sector people.
He is a private sector person.
He's a private sector
At
person.
least they came from
They are
private sector.
all private sector people. And then they are in the position of governance now. We always talk about private sector, business people. A country should be run like a business, because why? People expect that in a business there is leadership. People expect that in a business there is discipline. But here we are dealing with the most indisciplined lot ever.
Wow.
So it would be nice to get your perspective on them vis-a-vis leadership and what probably might be wrong.
Yeah, it's okay. Very interesting, issues that you have raised. Okay, so let's start with the passport, person. I think the first thing to make about the passport situation is that a leader makes a difference, or if you like, a leader or leadership can make a difference. We can still put it differently. Leadership often makes the difference. In fact, leadership is meant to make the difference. And I share with you what was said about the chairman of Pepsi Cola many years ago. And somebody asked him a question and said, why is it that every time you buy companies, because they acquire companies, why is it that every time you buy companies, you send the leadership packing? Because every time they buy a company, once they buy a company, the leadership is going. And the leadership in that case is not just the MD, is the board, is the MD, and is probably the top maybe the executives, all right, the executive directors or executive management, as the case may be. And his response was pretty simple. He said, well, the leadership is the problem, because if the leadership was good, then the company, they won't even have the opportunity of buying the company. Okay, which is very instructive. He said, for a company not to be doing well to the point that they are now the ones that come in to acquire the company, it means that the leadership is not good. So you can't retain that kind of leadership, because what would you be expecting from them? What magic are they going to perform? If they could, then maybe they should have done that. And so they bring in new management, they bring in people that they have tested, and they turn the fortunes of the company around, and they grow the company and they make money. It turns out to be a very worthwhile investment for them. So what am I saying? That leadership makes the difference. Please, anyone who tells you that one person can make the difference, tell them they don't understand the power and the potency of good leadership. Because one person presiding can make all the difference in the world. And that's what we are seeing with the Ministry of Interior. Notice what the person did. When he came in, he began to meet with all the key decision makers, all the key leaders in all the units where he had responsibility for. And one of them is immigration. All right, immigration is just one out of, a retinue. And be on the lookout for what he's going to do, for example, with this identity card thing, because now the National Identity Card Management, Commission has been moved under him. And he has already said, like many of us would have argued in the past, that why should I have BVN, have, voters card registration, have different cards, we're all in the same country. And every citizen can be identified. And that number is enough for tax purposes, for everything. That number is enough if we know what we're doing, and for many reasons. So watch out for what he's going to do along that line. And if you notice what the president has done, the president has changed the headship of that place, and he has done two things very instructive. He has brought in another private sector person while we're at it, and not only that, he brought in a woman. Okay, we can talk about that someday, but be on the lookout. Things are going to happen along that space. So this minister met with everyone. When he met with them for two key reasons. One was to say to them, this is my agenda, all right? And to seek their cooperation so that they can work together to make things happen. And the second was to understand what was going on, but with special emphasis on what challenges they were having, living up to the people's expectation about them. All right? And when you look at his agenda, like, Mr. Oni said, is people focused. All right? It is not about him, it's about the people, it's about Nigerians, it's about what are we here for? What service are we required to provide? And one of the things that he did, which is why his style is very different from that of the Minister of Works, all right, who was virtually, playing with the staff, an indisciplined lot with kid gloves, and we can talk about that separately. You must have watched his own videos where he told them clearly that we are not doing any Nigerian any favor by processing a passport. It is their right to get a passport. It's not a privilege, it's a right. And they don't have to, spend all their money, go through so much headache in order to get a simple passport, for God's sake. And if you watched it, he was speaking the truth. Everything he said was true. He had no apologies about it. And he made it clear. If we are going to work together, you either align with this or be ready to find somebody else or somewhere else to work. That's a leader that laid his cards on the table up front. That's a leader that spoke truth. That's a leader that conveyed that my service is about the people. It's not about the seat, it's not about the title, and it's not even about you. Because you are all supposed to be servants of the people with me. And that's what I'd like for us to collaborate to do. So the other thing, by listening to their issues, which they were able to at least lay out, because he spent a lot of time, his first few days and weeks, he spent sitting down to understand the process. So if you take the issuance of passport, they had to go through the process. They broke everything down so that he could understand exactly what was going on and where the bottlenecks were. And so that together they can, find solutions to clear off the bottlenecks. The other thing that he did, which is what a good leader does, is that he held himself out by declaring what his mandate was, what his commitment was. He held himself out to all of us as being accountable. I mean, a man came out and said, well, we have 200,000 passports that are outstanding, and we're going to clear them in 4 weeks. He said, I've told the people we must clear the backlog in 4 weeks. And thereafter, we're going to work to ensure that nobody takes more than 2 weeks to get a passport. Now, if you come out and make that kind of statement, what are you doing? You are saying, hold me accountable to these declarations. He didn't make them in the close. He made them in the open. He said it on news channels. He committed himself and his team that this is what we're about. This is what we're going to do. Now, so a lot in all of that, you see a man who is going somewhere, who paints clearly the picture of where he's going to his team, who elicits their cooperation and collaboration, who makes it clear that it's not a job for him alone to do because he can't do it and he needs them, all right, to get it done, who gets involved in learning what the processes are so that they can together fashion out the solutions to the obstacles. All right, so is it that we don't have enough offices? Is it that we don't have enough scanners? Is it that, our scanners are shutting down or there is no power? Is it that, what are the issues? Is it that we don't have sufficient booklets? So immediately they are able to put things in place so that they can work towards that. And it's almost there. It's almost there. So clearly, leadership is making a difference there. Now, the good thing about what we're seeing there is that his performance and conduct now becomes a challenge to all his colleagues. Because when they go to the National Executive Council meeting, which takes place, I think, on every Wednesdays, each one is going to come and tell what they have done, what they need support for, what progress they are making. You don't want to go there as a minister and somebody is giving the kind of report that the interior man is given, and you are not saying something meaningful. By the time you would have attended 3 or 4 of such meetings, you will begin to stick out as a non-performer. So you wake up. The more, so having somebody like that not only will change what is going on in the interior, the Ministry of Interior, it also has the effect of waking everybody else up or causing everyone, putting everyone on their toes. And generally, you begin to see that each one wants to also show up as somebody who is making an impact. And whatever you need to do to make that happen, they will do, whether it's to learn, whether it's to go to school, whether it's to go and ask the man how he's making waves in his place, because you don't want to come to the meeting and not have things to say. And that kind of person in the meetings, the executive council meetings, the same attitude that of improvement, the same attitude of, working with these people to achieve results is what he's going to expect from others. So when he's commenting on these presentations of some of his colleagues, he's going to be as pointed, as truthful, as expectant. All right? And so that's how one person can make a difference. And I think that having somebody like him there is useful because the man who is also the president himself wants to get things done. We have seen what he has done in the past. So he is the kind of person who would encourage this kind of leaders, and we use them as examples for others. Thankfully, we have others as well who are also, trying to get things done, to mobilize their people and all of that. And I think we are seeing a semblance of good leadership, even if pockets of them in different, areas. And I believe that when they really gather momentum, a lot more impact will be seen from their efforts. A lot more impact will be seen from their efforts. So those are some of the things we can say, and we can learn from the man, in the Ministry of Interior. There's an important thing to also acknowledge about his approach. He comes across, because he says it, as being committed to the mandate of the president, who is the overall leader. And that's important as well. All right, that's important. So it doesn't make issues about himself. It makes issues about the fact that he's a representative of a leader and is committed to the agenda of that leader, not his own agenda. All right, in a way, is the kind of thing that Jesus said. He said, what I do is not what I want to do. He said, I act on the basis of the one that sent me. And that's one of the things that leadership is about. All right. And that's why we often say that you must have been groomed by somebody. You must have been trained. A leader is sent as a representative. A leader is an agent. He doesn't represent himself. All right. Why? Because if you have been truly developed as a leader, you will reflect the attributes of the one who trained you. So when you go out, you are not representing yourself. You are representing the one that trained you. And you are not expected to depart from the things that you have learned. If you truly learned, you will operate like your leader. It doesn't mean you won't have ideas of your own. It means that you would operate by the same set of beliefs and principles. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. When Joshua was going to take over from Moses, he was told very clear things. He said, you are going to take over, but don't veer off to the right or to the left. The same things that Moses has written down is what you operate by. So when people truly understand leadership, I mean, it's in a leader's practice, you see in what he does, what he says, the attributes of the one who trained him or her, as the case may be. And that's why continuity is important. Because if you have a good leader who trained you, you can't be a bad leader. A good tree will produce only good fruits, and vice versa. That's how it works. That's how it works. So when, for examples, the disciples were saying, we cannot do but do the things we have heard, the things we have seen, the things that we have looked upon, that our hands have handled. Say, we can't but do. That's the training that we have received. So we are loyal, not just to the person, but to the principles of the leader. That's true loyalty. What did you learn? Is staying true with what you learn from your leader that works. That's true loyalty. Let me stop there using the examples of the Ministry of Interior. Let's look at the aspect of, these, our so-called private sector people. And Dare threw up the issue and said, look at all the private sector people. We are fond of pointing to the private sector, as if, they have the best leaders, they have the disciplined people and all of that. But when you really take a look, which is what he has thrown up, when you look at how the private sector people have conducted themselves in politics, it has been a show of shame, to say the least. You are wondering to yourself, I thought these people came from the private sector. Why are they turning out to be no different from the same people they were criticizing? Or perhaps to even be worse. That's why one of my earlier remarks, I said, it's very easy to complain. One of the easiest things to do is to see what somebody else is not doing well. Even somebody who cannot do what that person is doing, we can easily see, what somebody is not doing well. What you don't see is more than what you see. Because if somebody is not doing well, there are reasons behind it. But we don't take time to find out what are the reasons. We only point out what they are not doing well and we start criticizing, as if we could do better if we were in their shoes. And I'd like to announce to everyone Many of the people that you point to that they are not doing well, they are this, they are that. If we were put in their shoes, we will embarrass ourselves by our own performance. Why? One basic thing, you don't know the conditions under which they're operating. You don't know where the shoe is pinching. You don't know what are some of their inhibitions or constraints. Those are more difficult to discover. Those are usually not obvious to all. What is obvious is because you are there at the receiving end, you see what they didn't do or what they did and did wrong. All right, that's not to excuse non-performance. Please don't get me wrong. But that is further to say that we need to be careful at pointing accusing fingers, at writing off everyone. In Nigeria today, everyone is a rogue, in quotes. Everyone suspects everyone. The kind of scenario is tough for even the most sincere leaders to operate. You need a really bold and courageous, heart to be able to even offer yourself to lead in the current Nigerian situation. But let me tell you some of the issues that our private sector people are having. And it tells you that many times they don't understand. All right? Politics is different. Politics, it is in every organization. But the nature of the politics differs from organization to organization. You want to succeed, you must learn the politics. You must understand it. You must be ready to play it. And you must play it to win. Okay? The first thing is that the private sector, there are checks and balances. The fact that you are a CEO doesn't mean you can do anything. The fact that you are a CEO in the private sector, you can't just tell somebody, go and bring me 5 million naira. Without explaining, without anything. The person you gave that instruction will bring you a memo. Sir, can you authorize? The person that you gave that instruction is going to ask you, is going to check, do you have the authority to request for 5 million naira? The person is going to say, okay, even if you have the authority, what are you using the money for? If the person ever releases the money, there is one unit somewhere, audit, will come and query, why did you pay out 5 million in cash? What was it meant for? Who signed it off? All of those things. The board is there. So the private sector, as powerful as certain individuals can be, certain positions can be, they still have to mind rules. Okay? They still have to mind rules. In the public sector, it's not like that. Particularly as governors, it's not like that. I mean, governors sit on security vote that runs into tens of billions. And they are not under obligation to explain how the money was spent. And every time they get an allocation, a percentage of the allocation, what they get from FAC every month, goes to security vote. That's money you can dip your hand in and collect, and nobody has the right to ask you questions and any of that. That's number one. Even on the ones that is not security vote. The governor has the last word. The governor has the last word. That's something that your private sector people were not enjoying, and I use that, in a sarcastic sense. They didn't enjoy that kind of privilege in the private sector. No. But here, and it ties in with the second issue, which is power. That's why one of the tests, in fact, one of the preconditions, if you go through the Smart Leader program that I talked about, one of the preconditions there for you, I talk about 3 things that will confirm that you are fit to be a leader. One of them is your ability to use power and authority right. And that's what many of our people do not know. Many of the people who criticize some of these guys, they don't understand what power is, what it does to people. I would even provoke all of you on this platform and say to you, there are some things you will swear today that you can never do. Is because you are not yet in possession of power. You are not yet at a level of authority where when you say to this one, it goes. When you say to that one, come, it comes. Your private sector people haven't handled no matter their level, they have not handled the kind of power that is in the hands of governors. They have not. Absolute power. Unquestionable power. Nobody can stand and look a governor in the face. It doesn't matter whether you are in audit or you are wherever, and question what a governor does. Your private sector people have come to taste what they have never been exposed to, and they can't handle it. They are the same ones who used to complain about these people. But in the public sector, the way it is configured in Nigeria, it is absolute power. And what do we know? Absolute power corrupts what? Absolutely. So be careful when there are people who will complain about somebody today. I was sharing, jokingly with somebody. I said, somebody is complaining and he's saying, that some people are corrupt, ministers are corrupt and all of that. I said, because you're at your level, maybe you're handling 1 million, 2 million. Maybe you sign approval maximum 5 million. I said, if they put you in a position where you sign a $1 billion contract by yourself and it goes, all right? You won't be the same person, except you have been previously exposed, all right? And you are well trained. You won't be the same person. Why? Because you see somebody who then walks to you and brings you maybe 5 million naira. I mean, let me even say $1 million in cash. They put it in front of you. Not many people, forget what you and I can say. Not many people can resist that kind of temptation. When Jesus was telling Peter, he said, he said, very soon, some of you are going to deny that you ever knew me. What did they say? It looked ridiculous that this man doesn't even value, us as members of his team. He doesn't know we are loyal to him. He doesn't know that we are committed to him. No, the man knew exactly what he was saying, because there's an exposure that you have not had. And until you have it, you can't swear that you will do differently from others. Then he said to them, He said, okay, let me be more specific. Within the next 24 hours, you are going to deny me 3 times. You that you say you can even die, that you are willing to die for me, is that so? I give you the next 24 hours. No problem. Let's see what you're going to do. Did the man not deny him 3 times? He denied him 3 consecutive times. Why? In front of a maid. There were maids, there were inconsequential people, in quotes, who were saying, but you are one of the people following this man. The man swore, he swore. He said, me? No way. I don't even know. I've never seen him. That's the person who just a few hours ago was telling the master that I'm ready to die. Everybody else can deny you, but me, I won't deny you. It's easy to say. That's why they say talk is cheap. You need the exposure. Until you have the exposure, be careful what you say about people. That's why some of us, we keep preaching. You need to develop this thing they call capacity to lead, ability to lead. It doesn't fall on the shoulders of people. And part of why you need to develop it and understand what leadership is that one of the greatest risks we're even, we're encountering today is that we don't even know how to choose. We can't differentiate. The people who are voting can't differentiate good leaders from bad leaders. And the good leader is not who some of us think. The bad leader is not who some of us think. But as we go through this, and if you are opportune, if you decide to take on, go through the Smart Leader program, you would understand what leadership is. You would know how to identify a good leader. Because the shame is, what if all the leaders we are clamoring for, they're even bad leaders? But we don't know how to differentiate them. Because what we're looking at is not what makes for good leadership. That's a different, stuff. So I've talked about 2 things. The first is that your private sector people, they have never seen the kind of privilege. In the private sector, they were controlled. There were limits to what they could do. People could look at them in the face. The second is the amount of power and authority that they command. And they didn't understand, which is another point, the politics. Politics is different. Politics is different. I hear people say, when the president announced his list of ministers and all of that, and some people were disappointed, they felt, they just put some politicians there, blah, blah, blah. By the way, the so-called minister in interior is a politician. It's not even a private sector. Yes, he has his own businesses. And that's the mistake we make. We think that the politicians don't have their businesses. They have their businesses. They have their businesses. But this guy is even an IT-related guy, okay? But he's a politician. He was a member of House of Rep. But look at what he's doing now. Look at what he's doing. So the people were saying, look at the people that this man is bringing, expressing sort of disapproval, displeasure, thinking that it's because they don't understand the politics. You don't get to the level of the president just because we voted for you. Within the context of your party, there are people who made it happen for you. You must never get to the position and pretend as though it was just because of you. I can guarantee you that you won't last. You won't be there 1 year, because the same people that helped you to get there will show you that they are the ones that helped you to get there. So you have to balance the issues. This idea of technocrats, politicians, the dichotomy, and trying to suggest that, it's only technocrats that can get things done. Okay, if it's only technocrats, why are we suffering? All the governors, what have they done? Can somebody tell us what has happened in Edo State? I'm not from Edo State, but I'm not aware that it's 7 years now. The man has less than 1 year to go. What profoundly has his private sector background done to transform Edo State? Let's look at Ondo State, the same thing. Dari talked about Ogun State. Big deal. You would have thought that these guys will move mountains. They're even fighting about succession. I mean, why is it that today you are fighting with somebody you were happy just a few years ago that was your, a deputy? What is wrong, for God's sake, in a deputy aspiring to succeed you? If you are a true leader and you have succession at heart, which you must start thinking about from day one. I always say to leaders, you start thinking about succession not when you are going to leave. It's not on the eve of leaving that you think about succession. Succession must be in your brain from day one. Why? Because you need to train and build up the people to be able to succeed you. The glory of leadership is in succession. The proof of success of success of a leader is in succession. It's not in what you do when you are there. It is what happens when you have left. What does your successor do? That's when we are going to know whether you have been a good leader or you have just wasted everybody's time and destiny. These are the things that people don't understand. These are the things that these so-called leaders don't understand. They are preoccupied about today. They are trying to, instead of taking responsibility, you go and bring somebody from outside to succeed you, who has never worked with you, who has not been there. It's an indictment on you if you have kept a deputy governor for 7 years and suddenly there is a fight now because there is succession issue. And I read earlier today some statement from the Edo governor saying, a successor must come through a proper process. That's absolute nonsense. Because if you've done your work of succession, it doesn't matter how proper the process is. Your successor will emerge as the bona fide person that will succeed you. If you do your work correctly, it's clear that you have a different agenda. And it's a shame that somebody will work with you as a deputy for 8 years and you are not bold enough to say, you are the one I'm going to work to ensure that you succeed me. It's an indictment on you as a leader. It's part of the dilemma of having private sector people, in place. But the bottom line is that the private sector, the government sector, is a different ballgame. But it's a reflection. It's not as if you need a different kind of training to lead in the private sector than you do in the public sector. No, leadership is not sector specific. Why? Because the focus of leadership is not the system. The focus of leadership is the person. And if it is the person, that's one thing that is common to both the public sector and the private sector. Leadership is about providing a basis for behavioral transformation in people. Leadership is character development. You don't need a particular kind of character in the private sector than you need in the public sector. But it's a reflection that the people that we celebrate in the private sector, they don't have the character. Yes, their companies may be making money, but I will end with something I would show you here. That the fact that you make money or you led a company that made money does not make you a good leader. It does not make you a good leader. Far from it. And I have an example in scripture. There's a man who ran to Jesus in Luke chapter 18, I believe it is. A wealthy man, a rich man. He was successful, in quotes. He was wealthy. He had money. But he ran to somebody he called leader or master. He said, what must I do to enjoy eternal life? That's like a higher quality of life. Now, he didn't have fulfillment. That's what it meant. He was rich, but he knew he was not accomplished. Because if he was accomplished, why would he run to ask for that higher quality of life? And that higher quality of life, he could not buy, because if he could buy it, he was rich. He would have paid for it. He couldn't buy it. When you read all of that story, he was told at the end of the day that he needed to do away with his mentality and to come and learn from a leader how to achieve that higher quality of life. And that is how to do leadership right, which means you can be rich. It doesn't make you a good leader. And it doesn't mean that you would enjoy peace, or fulfillment in life. But you can't be a good leader and not be comfortable and enjoy fulfillment in life. Nobody can buy fulfillment. So our private sector people, many of them, look at what has happened. By the way, while we are still at it, can you see the private sector involvement at the central bank? Can you see what it has done? It is the same problem with the governors that we are seeing at central bank. At the central bank, the governor of the central bank is a god. His word is final. He can sign anything without anybody's approval. He is not obliged to do what his board says because he's executive governor. So even if a man had been the MD of Zenith, the whole of Zenith, in terms of net worth, okay, maybe a few trillions, and that's even recent. But do you know the volume of transactions, the amount of resources under the purview of a central bank governor? He was operating at a level that he had never seen before. The power was too much. Again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Would you expect the kinds of things that we're hearing? Would you expect the kinds of things that we're seeing? Would you expect the kind of words that the governor was speaking during the elections? It was evident that he lacked the character required of good leadership. The antidote to the corrupt tendencies of absolute power is character. Is character. That's why true leaders focus on the person to build character in them. Because when you have character, true character, and I wish I could go through it, but I can't decipher the elements here. When you have character, it doesn't matter if you are signing 20 trillion. Character is the antidote to corruption. It's not rules. It's not compliance. It's character. It's character. When it is lacking, and in most people it is lacking, the people in the face of certain realities, they will do things that they will be ashamed of. They won't be able to explain why they did it, but it's clear it's because they lack the character. It's because they lack. Where I used the example of Peter, and I'm going to stop here. I used the example. After Peter had denied 3 times, do you know what he did? He suddenly came to his senses and he wept bitterly. Why? Because he couldn't believe that he could ever have denied. He couldn't believe what had happened. All right? It was like, did I really do that? He was ashamed of himself. But he could not help it. Why? His character hadn't been built to that level yet. But the same Peter, after the job was done, they looked at the Pharisees, at the leaders of their time, at the oppressors of their time, and they said to them, you judge yourself whether we should obey what you are saying or not. The same Peter. Now, these were the council members. And this is like looking at, in those days, in the days of Supreme Military Council members under a military regime. You look at them and you tell them, can you listen to yourself? The same people who denied their master before a maid, an ordinary maid, are now talking to why? At that point, they had developed the character. That's the major difference. And the people were surprised. They said, who are these guys? Are these not illiterate men? And the same carpenter, fishermen that we've always known, who didn't even go to school. They are talking to us PhD holders. They don't know that we are members of the council. And then we are told, and they realize that they had been with Jesus. They had been with their master. These people they have been trained. They have got something from this, their master. Look at how they are now speaking. They're speaking with such boldness. All right, I think I've said enough. So I don't know if those issues addressed your various issues. Mr. Onidare, were you able to make any sense of my rigmarole going here and there? So let me have your own feedback. Let's round up. Let me have your own feedback. I've talked for quite a bit, trying to share my perspective on the issues that you raised. I hope, I don't know if it has helped any of us. I don't know if it has, if it has provoked certain thoughts. I don't know if it has helped you to look inwards, and to know that you need to challenge yourself. And be careful when you criticize the people that you see now. Don't criticize them and not develop yourself into a leader as well. Otherwise, even at your current level, you will disappoint the people who are looking up to you, not to talk of if you ever get to their level. You may discover that you'll be an embarrassment to even yourself, because you find yourself doing the same things or worse things, than the people you were criticizing. All right, let's hear one or two. The platform is rather quiet. Let's hear from one or two people, not just a chat, and then we can end on that note, please. All right, I welcome Mr. Sanusi, Mr. Bulama, or maybe it's Alaji. Pardon me, I'm just reading the names I see here. I'm blessing.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So were you able to follow us, Mr. Sanusi, Mr. Bulama, Mr. Blessing, or Mrs. Blessing? Were you able to follow us?
Yes, sir. For the time I joined, I think I've picked a lot of lessons from the talk.
Okay.
It's quite thought-provoking. I think it threw more light on the reason why you see people in the private sector having opportunity to get to government, and one is so shocked that is it not the same person that's been performing so excellently?
Yeah.
Now turning that's always bothered my mind that maybe there is something that is there that we don't know. But I think from what you have said tonight,
There is.
I have a clue. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very much,
right.
sir.
Thank you very much for your contribution. So I hope you would attend every Saturday and invite other people to join us as well. If you have found this beneficial, that's what we do here. We talk leadership not from a sentimental point of view. We talk leadership from an informed point of view. Our whole focus is to build, and nurture people who would do leadership right. And we do that based on the truth. All right. Is Blessing there? You want to say hi to everyone if you are there? And possibly just a remark or two. I don't know whether you were able to pick something as well. And is Mr. Bulama there? Yes.
Doctor,
Yes,
Dr.
yes,
Shibudo,
there.
how are you?
Okay. Okay, sorry, Mr. Bulama or Alaji Bulama. Let's do ladies first, sir, if you don't mind, sir.
Okay, ladies first. Yes, no problem.
Okay, all right. Madam, please go ahead.
All right. Good evening, sirs.
Good evening, ma.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Right, sir.
We can hear you.
All right. The conference is a very educative one. Although I didn't join on time, I just checked my mail and saw that you already live few minutes ago. But from the one that I was able to hear, the educative one is an insight. Even we women now, we are aspiring to be in a leadership positions.
Yes.
So it's a good one, sir. Thank you and keep it up, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope we'll see you every Saturday. We hold this every Saturday. So invite people as well. It's free. We all need to develop ourselves into good leaders. Thank you for your remark, ma. Yes, Alaji, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Shibudo. My name is Ebulama. We used to work together in UBA.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
in credit risk management.
Yeah. I remember.
Yes.
I remember and recollect the face now. How are you, sir?
Yes. So it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't join the platform on time, but I joined maybe about 30 minutes or so.
Okay.
Yes, but the little bit that I had, is quite enlightening, particularly the leadership practices of our public officers, the problem in Edo State,
yes,
and then generally what is happening in the public sector.
Yes.
I have worked in the public sector before.
Yes.
Crossing over to the private sector, and then from the private sector back to the public
Back to
sector.
the public sector.
Yes, before I retired. Now, I think you have hit the nail on the head. A character is the most important thing in leadership.
Yes.
Once you don't have character, whatever positions that you attain is really is for self-aggrandizement. You are not there for service. You are rather, there to help yourself.
Yeah.
So what is most important is character. Without character, forget it.
Yeah.
And then I heard you talk about grooming a successor.
Yes.
In the political setting, it will be difficult for deputy governors to succeed their governors. In the private sector, we talked about succession planning. You groom deputy for a number of years so that the deputy can succeed you. Because he would have seen the ups and downs. How he has been groomed in the culture of the company. He has imbibed the vision of the company, the mission of the company, and how to translate those visions, into action.
Yes.
But in the governorship and even at the federal level, deputies are creatures of the constitution.
Yes.
You must have a deputy to balance you and the part of the federal character.
Yes.
So usually the deputy is a minority. Meanwhile, the governor himself is from the majority.
Yes.
And there's no way the majority person will groom from somebody from the minority to succeed him.
Yes.
So that is the kind of challenge we face in so many states, not just Edo State. Everywhere. So even at the federal level. So that is something we have to work very, very hard to be able to say that having the benefit of working closely with someone, you are a leader for 7 years, 8 years, you should be the person to succeed.
Yes.
And if the governor doesn't want you, that you lack the character, that you lack the competence to succeed him, then, in good time, you should look for somebody, that can succeed him. But that's
Not that,
maybe for
not at the dying minutes.
to benefit that kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
So this is my first time I've been receiving your mail, but this is the first time I had the opportunity to join to draw instructions from your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we look forward to seeing more of you and to benefiting from your experience of both the private sector and the public sector. But
okay, I'll try and be joining.
All right, you've talked about it. You see, the succession issue is possible actually, and it's the kind of thing that you see that has played out in Lagos. That's why you have had a situation. Virtually everybody who has become a governor in Lagos after the president was governor came from his cabinet at that time. So when you have that mentality, that focus, you know how to make those things happen. It's just unfortunate because succession is an integral part of leadership. Succession is one of the most important things that a leader is the most important measure of leadership success. So it's not something that any leader who understands what leadership is about, ought to take for granted. And by the way, there's so much that we can say about it. A leader also doesn't produce only one successor. There are those who will take over from him directly. There are those who will move on to other places, to do great things. Maybe at our next session, I can speak a bit more, about the whole concept of succession, so that, we have that understanding of it. But what we see our people doing is just an absolute shame. All right, I don't know if there's anybody who wants to say anything else. I want to close at this point. We spent quite some time together. Is anybody saying anything else? All right, so thank you once again for the time that you have spent. I appreciate it. I hope it has been a worthwhile time for us. As you can see, we have so much to learn from each other, and we have an obligation, to develop ourselves into the kind of leaders that we would like to see. And that is possible, and it's all for our own benefit and for the benefits of generations to come. So I look forward to seeing you again next week, Saturday, by the special grace of God. We start at 7 p.m. and typically it's meant to be for 1 hour, but when the discussion gets pretty exciting, we tend to run over the time, but I believe it's all for good. So once again, enjoy the rest of your evening, and have a wonderful week ahead. God bless you. And
God bless you too, sir.
Amen. Thank you. God bless you too.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.